5 hard principles, lifting us higher, learning without blame, fueling our fire. Together we grow, together we thrive, keeping operational excellence alive.
Let me tell you a story. It's a classic workplace mystery, the kind that drives everybody nuts. It's all about a machine that pretty much had a mind of its own, and the team that decided to solve the puzzle by, well, completely changing the rules of the game. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? That one printer that only seems to work on Thursdays, that piece of software that just loves to crash right before you hit save. We've all got that one recurring problem that feels like it's just a permanent, frustrating part of the job. You know, we spend so much time and energy trying to find that one broken part, that single root cause. But this story, it suggests there's a much more powerful question we could be asking. What if the problem isn't one big broken thing, but a dozen little things all colliding at once? So our story kicks off at a company called Harbor Foods, right on their packaging line. And the trouble, it always started on a Tuesday. So picture this. Every Tuesday, right after a long weekend, the orders would just be through the roof. And like clockwork, Martha, the machine that tapes out the boxes, she'd just start acting up. We're talking jams, alarms going off, boxes only half taped. By late morning, you just knew overtime was coming. And everyone's patience was completely gone. It was the same maddening story week after week after week. The supervisor, a guy named Rick, he knew the usual approach, blaming the machine or blaming the operator. It just wasn't working. So he decided to try something totally new. He decided to get curious instead of furious. And this sentence right here, this is the foundation for everything that comes next. Rick got everyone together. The operators, maintenance, a forklift driver, even the person who buys the tape. And he laid down one simple, crucial rule. No one's in trouble. We are just here to learn. And that's the whole idea behind a learning team. It's not about managers imagining how the work should be done based on some manual. No, it's about listening to the people who actually do the work, day in and day out, with all its messy realities and all those clever little workarounds they figured out. And they follow this really simple but incredibly powerful 4-step process. First, you learn. Then you soak. You just let all that information settle. After that, you solve. And finally, you share what you found out. So let's see how they actually put this into action. Okay, so the team pulls up some chairs, and Rick just asks them a really simple question. Tell us the Tuesday story. He wasn't looking for a culprit. He was just looking for context. And as people started talking, something kind of amazing happened. The whole room just relaxed. Nobody was defending themselves. They were just describing their day. They were basically building a map of work as it's actually done, and slowly but surely the clues started to pop up. And what they found, it wasn't one single root cause, not at all. It was a whole collection of small connected details. Like for instance, they learned Martha needs a sort of warm-up period, but the Tuesday production target was 12% higher, so it was basically a sprint from the very first minute. The operators were constantly nudging boxes to make up for a belt that pulled to the right, and nearby forklift path was literally vibrating the whole line. Now you add in a wobbly bracket and a recent switch to cheaper tape, and suddenly you've got a system that's just under a ton of stress. This quote from John, the maintenance tech, this is the real turning point. This is the aha moment. The team realized the tape wasn't really the problem. The tape was just the first thing to fail when all these other conditions, the pace, the bad alignment, the vibrations, were piling on. The tape was the messenger, not the message. So, this is the crucial shift in thinking. The common way to do it is to hunt for a single root cause and figure out who to blame. But the learning team approach, it's all about understanding all the connected system conditions that make failure more likely and building a shared pool of knowledge so everybody sees the same big picture. And here's a step most of us just skip entirely. Instead of jumping right to solutions, the team just hit pause. They took 2 whole days to just soak in what they'd learned. And this gave them time to notice even more details. The forklift driver, he tried a different route. A person who buys the tape double-checked the new tape specs. The story just kept getting richer. So when they finally got back together, they weren't trying to find one giant, perfect, silver bullet solution. Nope. They were ready to solve the real problem with a whole series of small, intelligent changes. Rick framed this challenge perfectly. He didn't ask, how do we fix Martha forever? He asked, what's the smallest set of changes we can make that would make a really bad day feel just like a normal day? This makes the problem so much more manageable, and it encourages practical, achievable solutions. And the solutions they came up with were just as smart. They created a 30-minute warm-up window to ease into the day's pace. They installed a firmer bracket and put a visual guide on the machine for alignment. They marked off a forklift quiet zone with chalk to cut down vibrations. They used their new data to go back to the supplier and get better tape. And maybe my favorite, they created a simple stop rule. If you have to nudge 3 boxes in a row, the whole line pauses for 2 minutes to reset. No single giant fix, just a bunch of small changes owned by the team. So what happened? Did Martha become perfect overnight? Of course not. But the entire system of work, the people, the process, and the machine, it got a whole lot smarter. The results weren't just about fewer jams. What really improved were 3 huge things. First, capability grew. The team now actually understood the conditions they needed for success. Second, capacity improved. The changes gave them back their attention and took the pressure off all the guesswork. And finally, resilience went way up. They now had a stable system, so when a new problem popped up, they could handle it without everything descending into chaos. And this fight here is the real takeaway. Yeah, fixing the machine was the goal, but the outcome was so much bigger. The team now had a shared language, a shared mental map on how their work actually works. They built the collective muscle to solve the next problem, and the one after that. In the end, it really comes down to this powerful idea from Laya, one of the operators. By sharing what they learned, they made sure that their small win could be borrowed and built on by other people. See, the point wasn't just to fix one machine. It was to teach the whole organization how to see its own work more clearly. And that leaves us with one final question. What Martha exists in your workplace? And what might you discover if you stopped looking for a culprit and started looking for clues?
5 hard principles, lifting us higher, learning without blame, fueling our fire. Together we grow, together we thrive, keeping operational excellence alive.